Hey everybody, welcome to Improv FAQ at Length. This is a series of longer conversations about improv topics that have lots of questions surrounding them. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wick.
And we have a very special guest with us. It's our good friend, Melanie Leon. Mel, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, everybody. I'm so thankful to be here. Thanks, James and Bob.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk because this is going to be what we call a show and tell episode. And Mel is a friend of ours who we've met through various organizations, including DIF and also the Improv Network. You are a co-CEO of the Improv Network. And Posthumous is the show that we want to talk about, which is an immersive virtual show. And I'm going to go ahead and drop a link in the comments of our streams so that people can
go
put out
that link.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a long one.
The link has been dropped.
Links have been dropped.
We've done it, everyone.
All we do is drop links. Yeah.
So Mel, if you could start us out though with just how it is that you describe the show to people when they ask about it.
Yeah, so Posthumous is a completely virtual, all Zoom-based, interactive, immersive show. So that means that the audience comes into the rooms with the improvisers and the performers, and they get to make choices and decisions, and every single choice and decision they make changes the show, changes the next step, changes the outcome. So the audience is incredibly important. And they have a lot of power and control to kind of move throughout the show and make changes. So the world of Posthumous was created kind of in a devised theater scenario, very collaborative, which was wonderful for all the performers involved. But it is this kind of alternate reality world where once you die, you can basically buy a spot in an afterlife. There are different afterlives with different companies. It is completely a business. No one is saying it's not a business, and each company kind of has their own thing. So Posthumous is the high-tech one. They really want to focus on making sure the deceased remember their life before they move into that afterlife world. There's Bright Reaper, which is kind of the cool, trendy celebrity afterlife. There's Dream On, which is all about charity and doing good, and each company has their own attributes. And so you pick one and buy your spot, and when you die, they move your consciousness into that afterlife world, into that afterlife company. And so we are focusing on Posthumous, which is kind of that higher tech company that really focuses on restoring the deceased memories. And you get to come into the world of Posthumous. You enter that business. You can either be part of the company, you can be an investor, you can be working on restoring memories. My track, if you join me, you get to work with me in recruitment. So you get to see Posthumous from the side of recruitment. And, lots of fun twists, turns, secrets, deception, intrigue, along the way that people get to figure out and help us make the ending. So it's a really cool kind of sci-fi world, but again, completely dependent on the audience.
Wow, that's amazing.
That sounds awesome. That sounds like The Good Place meets like an RPG, adventure.
Like Ready Player One meets The Good Place. Yeah.
100%. But The Good Place, again, exactly as we said, from the side of the people creating that weird world. So you get to really see the in-depth look of how it's made, which is very exciting. Honestly, when I first heard about the show and they sat down with us and described it, the whole time I was like, I want this to be a TV show that I'm not in, but I watch, because this sounds so cool.
So, okay. I have a ton of questions about just like the theater and like actor side of it, but I guess before we get to that, I imagine you get a lot of questions about like how it works. I should say, actually, I'm willing to bet that it's very. If you do the show, I'm willing to bet that it's so much more self-explanatory than it seems from the outside if you just like hear about it and aren't familiar with virtual shows or immersive shows.
Yes. But you don't need to know anything going in.
Because it's immersive, you're just like directly getting guided along the entire way, right? So
we are very good at making sure we take care of our audience. We don't want to leave anyone out in the wind. There is definitely, an explanation at the beginning. We kind of have an orientation that explains the company and what's going on. And the audience will always be with the performer. So there's always someone there to answer questions, lead them along, and help them out. But again, we leave the choices and decisions up to them. So they really do make the outcome of the show, but we are always there to assist and lead. There is a timeline that we know to always kind of help out with.
Gotcha. And
Wow.
it's a 2.5 hour show, is that right?
So it's kind of set for 2 hours with the assumption that with the audience, depending on the audience, it may run over. Yeah. So it could end up a 2.5 hour show. We do want to ensure, one of the beautiful things about this show is there's one-on-one audience interaction if they want it. The characters there in a room, and we can talk directly to you. We can talk to several people. You know, we want to give each audience member the attention that they want and the answers that they need in that show. So we don't want to necessarily set a hard end time, because that wouldn't kind of honor the system that we've created for the audience.
That's
Gotcha,
great.
yeah.
Okay, and just to clarify, so if someone wanted to watch and for some reason they didn't want to participate, they can just be a fly on the wall?
So definitely. They could come and
cool.
turn their camera off and mute their mic if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
It's definitely probably less fun than being part of the team and making decisions and choices.
Right.
You can use the chat. You know, if they want to answer a question, they could be like, this is the decision I think we should make, and they can put it in the chat. But, you know.
Yeah. No, I just heard my mom's voice in the back of my head, like, Bobby, do I have to say anything, or they're not going to make fun of me, are they? And like, it's just a question I get every time I tell anybody about improv. So I was the voice of the audience right there.
They can sit in the back and watch with the hope that other people participate, because we do need some decisions made. But yes, some people I'm sure will absolutely kind of sit back and watch. They may leave their camera on, but maybe they're not as participatory. It's totally their choice with how much they want to do. As far as the making fun of people, you know, it's interactive. It depends what you say to which character. I can't promise what's going to happen. It's not intended to make fun of anybody, but banter can happen. That's part of the fun.
Yeah. And so do people tend to, any given show is open to the public. And so you get a random combination of people all over the place, but do you also get people that do it in groups, or like, do you do like buyouts for specific groups?
Yeah, so they can definitely do that. Usually, I mean, if they want to do, you know, a mass ticket purchase and buy it a night, they absolutely could. More often than not, we kind of have a mix of people, but we do have groups coming in, and it's kind of their choice. They can request to be on the same track together, where they start off together. And sometimes people like to purposely split from their family and friends, because then they can compare notes after the fact.
That's cool.
So it's very much up to them and what they kind of wish to do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then, so tell me how you got involved, and a little bit about Phoenix Tears Productions.
Yeah. So Phoenix Tears is a local Central Florida production company, woman-led, by two powerhouse ladies that are just wonderful in the community, incredibly supportive of the arts. And they frequently do kind of this immersive interactive theater, originally in person, but then COVID times moved online. And a few months ago, we actually did a kind of what I would call a simplified beta version to kind of test the Zoom platform in a show called Recovery, which was the same Posthumous, but only focused on what it means to restore memories to the deceased. If you're a Posthumous employee, how do you give those memories to the deceased and give them the right information and get the right information to achieve an ending that you hope for? So also, again, very interactive and immersive, and many different endings. I think then we had about 4 or 5 endings in Posthumous, because we've added so many more tracks and so many more ways for you to move. I think there's over 10 endings in this show. So we did have that kind of first show to be like, is this going to work? And the answer was yes. We sold out the complete run of Recovery, really got wonderful feedback. People would come multiple times to see the different, you know, tracks that they didn't get to see the first time and make different choices. I think our last show, we mainly had people who had already been through it, just to simply see if they could like break the system. I mean, you know, they came in with the sole goal to make what they thought was the wrong choice every single time and see what happened. And it was incredibly fun. So we did have that run of Recovery, which sold out. So, which was very helpful in kind of creating this. But yeah, originally, you know, they put out an audition notice, and I'm familiar with both Megan and Mallory. Excuse me. we have kind of crossed paths in the theater community many times before. So I saw it and I was like, improv, immersive, I'm going to audition. And so that's kind of how we all came to be. But it's been an incredibly wonderful experience. The whole Phoenix Tears community is not only supportive, but considerate of every performer and what they want to bring to the table. I've never been involved in something that is so open to my interpretation and my input, which as a performer stuck at home is really nice.
Yeah, I bet. And so you're in Florida, in Orlando, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the cast is from all over the place too?
Yeah, so we have performers from all over the United States and I think Canada. So I think that's kind of where our performers base spreads.
Yeah. So that's how was like the rehearsal process, or like
I was just about to
how does especially with an immersive show, it's tricky enough with a virtual show, right? To like coordinate and kind of like, but then when it's immersive, how does that all work with the rehearsal?
It is a truly unique experience. I have been involved in many improv shows, many virtual shows. This is a one-of-a-kind experience. We definitely collaborate. So our director, Mallory, comes in with a little bit of background of the world, a timeline, and we sit down and we individually develop our characters and we decide how their relationship works, and we decide, how we would respond to things, which also kind of starts transforming the timeline into what it'll be. We definitely created kind of one of those, I don't know if you call them like those murder boards with pictures and notes and strings.
Connect everything,
descriptions, and then a new path and a new string. We had to create one of those just so we could all kind of be like, well, if I go here and you go here, then where does this go? And doing our best to keep each other updated, because we're all in different rooms. I can't see necessarily the decisions that are happening in another room. We have to constantly be up to date and in contact of what might happen. So it was a lot of talking and a lot of writing, which you might not expect, but I needed to be able to write down my backstory and things that trigger me and what I find interesting, so that if another person in another room gets asked questions, they understand. So it was definitely complicated. We've asked a lot of questions. We've all together answered a lot of questions. And then honestly, we spent a couple rehearsals talking and planning and understanding. And then as any good improv show, we just threw ourselves in. It would be my turn for the day and everyone else would play audience. And I would just go and see if how long, I could do, and I could do all the components and answer all the questions. And we just kind of threw ourselves into it to develop the characters as we did reps. So some parts untraditional, some parts very traditional.
Yeah. Okay. So now I think this is a really fascinating mid-ground between like scripted and improvised, right? Where it's like you're not learning a script, but you're learning the information and the facts about a world so intimately that you can improvise without getting anything wrong or inconsistent, so to speak. And did you say you had some experience doing immersive theater before that?
Yeah.
Before the virtual?
I mean, I have had experience in other productions, but the main virtual one was the recovery show that happened prior to this Posthumous, also created by Phoenix Tears, and more, I say simplified in the sense that there are less tracks, less endings, slightly more control for us to really understand the process of Zoom and how it works and how we can translate to the audience. But now all of that's gone and we just let loose the wildness. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And there's obvious differences between doing it an immersive show in person to doing it virtually, but on the acting front, is it more or less the same, or are there were there surprising differences to you?
Yeah, I would think it's relatively similar in the same sense as you said. You have to intimately know the world, you have to intimately know your relationship with other characters, but you have no idea what is going to come to you in the audience and what's truly going to happen. And no matter how much planning you do, something is going to be different because an audience member comes in and has a different thought than you planned for. So that's all very similar. Clearly the benefits of in-person are, it does feel more intimate. You are in person. You do have a better chance of getting those kind of people we talked about who are like, I don't know if I want to participate, because you can look them in the eyes and you could be like, hey, no, it's going to be okay. Come with me. I'll take you under my wing and we'll be great. Whereas on Zoom, they really can just hide video and
no camera.
Yeah.
So that is more difficult. The benefit that I kind of enjoy is it does let the show timeline be a little more rapid pace because you are simply moving people between rooms. There isn't the same traffic pattern that you kind of have to plan for in a live space. How do I stay with my group but also get this person over here if they want to? We have a tech who moves that person where they want to go. So it keeps them engaged because there's no travel time kind of between the scenes that you might expect, which also gives them a lot more freedom to move between the scenes because we can just move them. There's no way that they're restrained to an area because no one can walk them where they need to go at that point in the story. So that aspect of it is really nice. We have this, honestly, one of my favorite things of the show is we have an elevator room and it's just a picture of an elevator. So when you're moving between things, they just put you in the elevator and you go to the next scene and you come out. So, I mean, you make it as real as you can, but it does kind of speed up the transitions for audience members who are really engaged.
What I would imagine one of the issues you might have with audience. I'm sorry, I'm hearing my own voice echo, so I hope not.
It's coming and going.
Okay. So I would imagine one of the issues you might have with the audience member is teaching them how to use Zoom. I mean, everybody's using it now, but there's still some. Again, I hear my mom's voice in the back, and I'm trying not to be negative, but it just. How do you get this darn thing to work, Bobby? Or so is that part of the tech's job? Making sure they're set up and that their Zoom's updated and everything, so there's no tech issues during the show.
They send out an email prior that kind of explains it, but then also what we call kind of the out of world introduction, where someone comes in and goes, "Hi, let me talk you through a little bit of what you're going to need to do. This is the camera, this is the mute button." But honestly, that's all they need. We move them between the rooms because the host has that ability. So we just ensure that they understand how to do their video and their mute, and then also, how to change between gallery view because it's easier to watch in gallery view. So we teach them how to do that, and we make sure everyone is good and set and understands before we move on.
Yeah, it's like the 2020 version of please shut off your phones and and don't talk
But in worst case, again, the host or the tech can mute and unmute and turn video off.
Yeah.
If we need to get there. But usually after that kind of orientation, people catch on.
I think that'd be the one thing I miss when we open up the theaters again, being able to mute your audience. That'd be it's gonna be rough.
No kidding. Damn. So Mel, for somebody that is interested in immersive theater, like just on the acting front, like for improvisers who are curious about it, like what sort of muscles as an actor are especially in play? Like if somebody's like, I wonder if I'd be good at it, how would you kind of give them an idea of what's involved and like what lends itself to good immersive acting?
Yeah, so I think the two main things that come into play strongly is character work. You, no matter what, have to understand your character to a depth that you might not need in, a short form game that's only 3 minutes. And, as long as you're doing the game, if your character sways a little, it's okay. Or long form, where if your character starts to sway, maybe a scene can change. This, you are that character, and you are no other character, and there's no escaping it. So you need to truly understand what makes that character tick, what they like, what they don't like. If the audience comes at you a little bit, how do they respond to that? And you need to truly understand that character so you can just respond. You are in character constantly. There is no off, at least during our show. We go from the minute it starts, that 2.5 hours. So character work, understanding your character, being comfortable, developing, especially in our scenario, which is it is devised theater, where I got to create Melinda Winter myself. You got to understand who they are, what makes them tick, and why they are the way they are, which no one may ask you. No one may ever ask your backstory or what's going on, but you need to really understand how to improvise and stay in character. And then the second thing I would say would probably be kind of status work. So understanding the status of your character to every audience member, but then also the other characters. Because that status, even if you don't necessarily understand a question or know how to answer a question, you can always respond through the lens of the status that you have in that situation. Right. So kind of falling back on those two things, you know, understanding character work and understanding status work, I think those coupled with, again, just being comfortable improvising, are kind of those pillars that make it really helpful and also feel seamless and like you're in a scene. Not like you're trying to make things up, but you really are present and yourself immersed in the scene.
Yeah. So sorry if I missed this, but how much are you interacting with other characters throughout the show versus being just the guide for the players or audience?
Yeah, so it's completely dependent on the character and how the audience moves. So sometimes I will interact several times with different characters and you'll see us talk and you'll interact with it. And you'll tell me, you're going to go talk to this person. Well, I don't like how they work, so this is how I think you should approach it. That does happen. There are probably times, depending on how the audience moves, that I have much less interaction with other characters. But it is rare that a performer is completely alone.
Gotcha.
You know, there are other times, you know, in my track, there are performers who pop in to play someone I'm talking about, and so I do get to interact with them. So you're not just all alone as a performer in a room with 10 people trying to explain the world. There is a show element to it too, to explain things. So, you know, specifically for the what we call the I am system, which is how people remember their memories, recovering their memories, the audience will get to witness memories from the deceased life. Okay. They'll be led by someone who's in charge of that department, but they get to watch performers perform these memories. And then based on that, they get to make decisions. And then the deceased person, you know, appears and you get to interact with them. So there are scenes and many people that the audience will be interacting with. No one audience member will only see one character. There will be many that they get to see and experience, especially depending on their decisions.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the practical side of being a performer in a Zoom cast. Are there any requirements of what your background has to look like, or are you using a virtual background, or any kind of tech things you had to like equipment you had to upgrade or buy or use?
Yeah. So as far as equipment, for me, not really. You know, I've had this computer camera, which also has an internal microphone. It's nothing fancy. It was off Amazon. I didn't spend a lot, and that's what I use. And I, purchased that just for the COVID life. Just Zoom calls with friends and family. So for me, I did not have to purchase anything special. Depending on the character, depends on if they're using virtual backgrounds or not. Some characters are moving through very specific scenery, so they have virtual backgrounds. Myself, in all honesty, this is where I am. I'm going to set it up a little nicer. There's a hole right there, which I didn't see until just now. That's not there. But it's a sheet, and that's my world, because my character very much, would be in a kind of blank focused environment. So I have a sheet and my normal camera, and that's kind of all I've needed. Many of the performers, all they need to be is in front of a blank wall. That's kind of all they need, and then they're using the embedded camera in their laptop. So could you make it fancier and have really nice lighting and really nice camera? Sure, but it's less about that in this show and more about the relationships and the interactions than how pretty we look, if that makes any sense. Some of the characters honestly kind of put themselves in the dark a little bit based on their character and what they're trying to do. So we set the scene, but it doesn't have to be prime recording quality.
No, it could be an advantage, actually. With all those things, like if you have a menacing character, putting yourself in the dark, and almost making the audience uncomfortable by your visual, it's kind of a really cool trick. I like that.
Yeah, and I just love the you're taking like a premise of this whole world is sort of made to justify the like look and feel of like a surreal virtual space. And I just love that, as opposed to it can be so much more tempting and more difficult to be like, oh, how can we kind of like do what we want to do in a live theater space, but just kind of like modify it and suspend disbelief for virtual. But I love the idea of a show like this that is like, okay, let's take the format first and say what makes sense for this to be applied to, I think that's so awesome.
Yeah, I will say I've done many, virtual improv shows in the sense of pure improv, short form, long form, neutral background, but then do we really want neutral background? Oh, we do have the option for virtual backgrounds. How quickly can we change our virtual background and all performers being the same? And, the audience isn't there, so you're making these quick background changes without knowing if they respond at all, because you can't hear or see them. And for me personally, we all have different preferences. Virtual improv is tough for me. I miss the audience, and I miss the energy, and I miss my performers on stage, and I just don't feel the connection the same, which is a lot of improv for me. So sometimes I leave feeling, I think, more drained after a virtual improv show than I might from a live improv show.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that part can be really difficult. And this show, again, not worrying as much about the complicated technology from the performers. The techs clearly have a lot going on to move pieces and pop up PowerPoints and whatever they need to do. Wonderful humans techs. I miss them too. They're so great. But the fact that we truly get to focus on the audience in the room. So again, we're seeing that response. We're feeding off of the immediate, imminent options and thoughts of the audience to the moment. Again, we're completely improvising with our fellow performers, but we are really together as a team with the performers and the audience. This is the first show that I feel normal, again, in the sense of improv, if that makes sense. I really feel connected and involved, and I leave energized again, because we kind of have created that world very different than a large scale audience shouting suggestions and laughing and hearing their gasps and changing. But having that specific one-on-one with the audience and truly letting them decide my fate and the show's fate and how improvised it is has kind of brought me back into that feeling of live improv. So as a performer, it's been kind of crucial to my improv health. It's been really helpful kind of in that improv world to have that true connection and response time with the audience and performers.
Yeah, and again, it's so funny because it seems so counterintuitive that like, okay, well, now we have to do everything in a virtual space, and so you would think the last thing that you could do is interactive, like immersive stuff, and it's like, okay, well, we're gonna have to figure out how to do the fourth wall is the computer screen now, and that makes sense, and I think like you said, for some people, it does work on the audience or performer side, but just that again, that counterintuitive thing that like, well, maybe immersive interactive is the best way, even though we can't be in the same room, or especially because we can't be in the same room, it's maybe even more important to try and find ways to connect in this theatrical virtual space.
Absolutely. I mean, every time I feel that way kind of going in, and it's also got kind of a cool twist where, if you're not doing immersive theater, if you're doing staged improv shows, you don't necessarily get to like look the audience in the eyes and see how they're truly responding.
Yeah.
You're kind of getting a general feel.
Yeah.
In these shows, you are right here, and I'm honest, in recovery, I played a different character, but she was a little not so likable, and I had audience members tell me they did not like me, they did not wish to talk to me, and yelled at me. And you're like, a normal improv show, please don't yell at me if you're in the audience. I don't want that. Please put the drink down and don't yell at me. But in the virtual world, I was like, yes, you should yell at me. I'm awful. And it gives them that freedom to really express themselves and do what they want. And it gives me such a unique challenge to really be right here with an audience member truly experiencing their thoughts in the moment, whether it's positive or whatever I'm getting screamed at. And as a performer, it's super fun. And as an audience member, they're enjoying it so much.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because most people haven't been able to interact with I mean, I think of all my single friends who are stuck in their own house. So being able to interact with somebody and have entertainment to it, it's got to be so relieving and so special, you know?
And it's a really safe place to do it.
Right.
You know, weirdly enough, I feel safer getting yelled at, you know, through a computer screen, clearly. You know, I'm safe. And they feel more safe telling me they don't like my actions and I should be different through a computer screen. You know, there is a safety being in your own space and in your own home. So I think that's another thing that benefits this being virtual. You know, the immersive shows that I've attended as an audience member, I would never go that strong. I would always be like, hey, where are we going next? Cool. Well, this is my opinion, please and thank you. But if you don't want to do my opinion, that's okay, because I don't want to mess up your show and I don't want to put a wrench in all the hard work you've done. So maybe I'll just sit on this couch and then you just tell me when I should talk. You know, that's how often I am as an audience member in immersive shows.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in their face and interrupt, but virtually it's encouraged and you can. And it gives you that time to just open up and let loose in a way that you couldn't do in person, both positive and negative. So that's been very enjoyable to see and experience.
Yeah, that is very cool. That people, again, would just be more comfortable and encouraged to interact because of the distance or the impersonal limitations of it. But so out of curiosity, your character, what's her name? Mallory Winter?
Melinda Winter.
Melinda Winter.
One season, no S.
Yes.
One season, no S. It was very particular.
Are you playing a character that's pretty close to self in just like voicing and stuff, or is it pretty far? Well, I don't mean in like personality. I just mean like, are people typically trying to put on like accents and sort of like postures and facial expressions, or are you trying to keep it kind of close to your own physicality and whatnot? I
think that is, in the sense of it's open for the personal performer what they wish to do. We are not trying to play someone who I could not play. You know, whatever character I play needs to be reasonably and honestly able to look like me. Right. You know, in improv on stage, we, you know, can play whatever we want and the audience comes along with us. But we definitely are making these characters in a real world. So whoever I picked needs to at least be able to exist in this body. So
gotcha.
That would kind of be that. But after that, it's very much open. Clearly, because we are in this box, especially for me, face is very important. My character is very facially responsive and detailed. So everything, you see her thoughts in her eyes and her facial expression, even if she doesn't say it, because this is what you got. You know, you don't get to see me move around the stage. I don't have props. It is the world exists here. So that is very important for my character, because she, especially on that track, is very integrated with the audience members. So they really need to kind of read her at every moment. But besides that, I mean, it's truly, truly open. As myself, I would not enjoy Melinda Winter as a human, and I would not spend time with her. That's just who she is. She is, and I'm sure many people have had this person, kind of like if you think of like an HR person who pretends to really care about your situation, but is really just trying to kind of get you out of the room because they're going to do what they need to do. And they'll smile and be like, wow, I'm so sorry, but also go back to work. That's kind of who she is and how she operates within the company. So not someone that you want to get a coffee with.
Sure.
But that also makes her fun. She's very expressive. She's very over the top. She's loud, which is also something going back to improv in the virtual world. something else I think is very important is heightened energy. And, it's so easy for the computer to like drain out, and the little things that you would do on stage that might come across don't necessarily. So having that heightened, as I said, facial energy, vocal quality kind of brings people in a little bit.
Yeah, so that's something that they're looking for as well in casting, because you're a very expressive person.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yes.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm gonna be honest. It probably was not the first thing they were looking for. When I went through the original audition, it was a sincere improv audition. There were scenes, there were suggestions, there were frameworks, and you improvised with the other person in the audition. And they looked for people who could create character, relationship, and scene work on the spot. Maybe that is a note for me. That is my personal opinion, but I am indeed expressive as a human on my daily.
Yeah.
So,
so you use it in a way that works really well for you.
Right.
Yeah. And again, I guess it kind of goes to the question too of like whether people are playing, how much people want to stretch away from themselves, because it's harder to maintain, immersively for that long in a show. If you're like, okay, I'm going to do like a little bit of a voice and a facial expression, it's like you're going to have to keep that then
for 2.5 hours. That's awesome.
I firmly believe I'm going to lose my voice because I'm not using my 100% normal voice. Like she has a altered vocal quality. There is no doubt in my mind by the end of a weekend, I'm going to be a little raspy.
Okay.
Would you be willing to give us a little flavor of her?
Yeah, I mean, Melinda's very just like, hi, I know, right? That's okay. But if you went back to work, that'd probably be best.
She's so much more it's disingenuous, but she's so much more chipper than I thought she would be.
Oh yeah, it's not real.
No.
Yeah.
That's the one that's gonna stab you in the back. You gotta watch out for that one.
Yeah, but I mean, the laugh and the smile I'm finding is what is getting me, because she does that laugh after every kind of backhanded compliment.
Yeah,
like everything always ends in a and so that laugh is gonna hurt me at some point. And then also I have known through runs that the smiling does make my face hurt after 2 hours. You can feel the muscles start to like twitch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, I need to go to neutral soon. But she smiles nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the audience laughing for 20 minutes at an improv show, and my face hurts. I can't imagine like putting on that big of a smile, for 2 hours.
You gotta ice your face when you're done performing. So 2 questions. They're weird. So, are you in a house or an apartment complex? And do you perform sitting down or standing up?
House, and then for the immersive performance, I sit.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So for this performance, I sit honestly in this chair in this space. I don't necessarily find, because it's not physical in that sense. We're not looking for mimed objects, and we're not becoming physical in our whole body. You might have different posture, but sitting is just as effective. And honestly, it saves a little bit of leg energy when you're putting out energy elsewhere. Other virtual improv, I usually will stand. If I'm doing true short form or long form scene work, I'll stand.
Because I notice like a lot of the bigger people who play big naturally can't do it sitting down. So I find that very impressive. Like, yeah.
It's much harder, but yeah. I just find it slightly easier because she's technically in an office talking to kind of just sit and be in that moment.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it's like long game strategic.
Right.
To be like, okay, where's my energy going? Because I feel like if I stand up and I try to perform, what I end up doing is moving a lot, like in places that I've now freed up to move, and it's like you can see the shifting, but you can't see where that energy is, and so it's a lot of like loose energy, which can be good to keep you engaged, but again, it's probably going to burn you out quicker than the alternative.
Definitely.
And so in these, you're playing to camera, your eye contact straight to the camera.
I would say 80%. There are definitely times where it is helpful to be watching the audience because I'm seeing what they're responding to, and it really is just kind of impossible to be staring here, and if there's 5 or 6 people in the room seeing the bottom of the screen, what they're thinking.
Right.
So there are times where I will talk to screen, but then if they're talking to me specifically, I will look around like I'm looking in the room just to really truly gauge kind of what they're doing.
Yeah, and I would love to see. I always bring this up, and I'm like, I want to see all these cool developments in the virtual format, but then it just reminds me that like what I'm really doing is rooting for it to be necessary to use this thing for longer. But so saying that as a disclaimer, I don't want the lockdown and everything to last any longer than necessary. But if it does, what I would like to see developed is a way to look at camera, but also see the audience, because obviously like built into like laptops or desktops, the camera's above the screen, but I imagine kind of like either some kind of adapter like a teleprompter screen, or just having a tablet or a laptop screen that has the camera sort of behind the display is possible. And I think that would make a huge difference in the interactability of and that goes for theater, but also for like seeing your family or having a business meeting, to be able to feel like you're making eye contact with the people you're talking to does make a difference.
100%. Yeah. To make it seem like you're making eye contact, but also, especially with family, turn off your own face, because otherwise you look at your own face the whole time. So both of those.
Yeah. So you're saying to be able to turn it off on your display, but not have it turn off for the other people? Yeah. That would be great. Yeah.
Because otherwise, as any of us, we're kind of like...
Yeah.
You're basically looking at the mirror and having a conversation with somebody else in the room. It's...
Yeah. I this is such a, so can you give us the like details on the show dates and whatnot before we wrap up?
Yeah. So it starts this coming weekend. I'm actually looking at the dates right now. So we have 2 shows on Saturday the 5th. We have like an afternoon show, EST, and then an evening show, EST. And then Sunday the 6th, we have an evening show, EST. And then the next weekend we have shows, which is the weekend of the 12th. We have shows the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. So that's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's just a 2-weekend run. The tickets are in that link that you posted. But yeah, those weekends are coming up pretty quickly in December. Limited capacity again in ticket sale, because again, one of the things that I adore about the show is that true audience interaction. And we don't want to get to the number that we can't have that audience have that time. So there is a cap so that they can get that time and move around, and I can make sure to acknowledge each person. And as Melinda might do, maybe give them a backhanded compliment each. They've got something to take home with them, And so we want to make sure that we've got that time. So number is reduced. We've got a limited capped capacity for those 2 weekends. I think the second weekend we're almost about half sold out already. And then that recovery run we did sell out completely, which was really nice to kind of have that full audience. So I would definitely suggest, if you're interested, whether or not you're an improviser and you're interested in seeing, immersed, involved, interactive theater for yourself to participate in the future or to develop, this really is kind of a good example to get an experience like that. And if you're not an improviser and you just want to be in the audience and have some fun and interact and create a story on your own that is completely dependent upon you, that no other person will see the same story and outcome, it's definitely a fun ride. I mean, I cannot tell you enough just how silly and fun, but also the storyline is very cool and in-depth. So even that alone, if you're interested in sci-fi or not, it's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely grab those tickets if you're interested, because hopefully it will sell out with that limited number. There is a chance we'll have an extended run if it sells out in January, so there might be more tickets, but tickets are not expensive for, that length of a show in general. And,
Right.
It's a fun thing to do at home if you're with the holidays. If you buy 2 tickets for 2 people in your house, but you want to sit at the same computer and experience it together, you can do that. So you can sit with a family member or friend, on an evening getting ready for the holidays and kind of play along and figure things out. So that's definitely all possible. But yeah, it's by Phoenix Tears Productions. If you're looking online, the show's called Posthumous, and it's going to be so fun. Come see me. I promise I'll be somewhat nice. Maybe Melinda, depends on the moment.
Can't promise that.
Other characters will be really nice, so they'll make up for me. So I hope people join. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool. Sorry if you're hearing the noise on the street there, but I think it's such a cool concept. And really, I should have asked this before we just did the long kind of closing details on the show. But like we've talked on here about like what sorts of shows have you seen out in the virtual space? And actually, just last week, the topic was kind of checking in about exactly that. Like where are we at now? Kind of seeing that this is going to be extended X amount of time. How is that affecting what's going on the virtual stage, so to speak? And one of our first episodes was about improv adapting to virtual platforms. So it's really, really cool to hear about and discover a show like this that seems to be really taking it, using the parameters and the unique aspects to its advantage. Do you know of any other shows that like are similarly interesting or have, like us? I haven't really been paying that much attention because I'm not as drawn to it as some people are. But like, have you come across anything that uses it in unique ways?
Yeah, so there have actually been a few different immersive theater experiences, and one of the wonderful things about being at home, I mean, one of the wonderful things about being at home, I'm not going to put a conditional on that, I'm going to stick with it.
All right.
Is you can see theater from other places. So there's been a few different like interactive experiences out of England and different places like that where you can go. I know our director definitely did her research and went and watched a whole bunch of different shows to see, at least technology wise, what works and what didn't work. So they're out there. I've seen shows where the performers aren't on screen and people are just drawing the scenes. So they're improvised drawing and improvised speaking. And I've seen shows that are, honest to goodness, geniuses at using virtual backgrounds and filters. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how it's done, but wow, can they make it look like they're in the same room or on different sides of the room, and the filters they used. I've seen kids shows that are so silly and fun and allows the kids, to interact in the chat, whether or not they're in the audience. And, those especially are really great at costuming and filters. Again, using the things kind of at their disposal to connect. A lot of face paint, to kind of appeal for the kids, but also silly enough for the adults to, enjoy and watch along. So there's so much out there that people are honestly just brilliant at. And, it is amazing. And, as much as I see, I'm sure there's 6 times more that I haven't seen and that I have no idea that it's going on.
Totally, yeah. But, I mean, I feel you on the kids show stuff too. The Julia is part of Story Pirates, and so I get to see her do like costumes, and the way that they format is very again, it's aimed for kids, but I can see how I've never been much of a costumer. That's part of the reason I love improv, but like if you are that type of person, like that just has a trunk of costumes and props, like what a cool thing to just have just on the side off camera, and using the sort of like disappearing and reappearing in different outfits and stuff. Just seems like it's such a fun method that they're applying to their shows. So I feel you there. Okay, awesome. So Mel, thanks so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation. Again, the show is Posthumous and by Phoenix Tears Productions, and it has its run this coming weekend.
Check out the links. We dropped links so hard.
Check out those links.
We dropped links this weekend, coming weekend, and then the following weekend. So
yep. Wonderful. Yeah, thanks so much for joining. It's so great to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was so good to see you both. This was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, everyone, thanks for tuning in for Improv FAQ at length. You can check out all the most recent stuff. We're really just down to doing our live streams every Sunday, but all the most up-to-date and complete material is going to be on our YouTube page, and you can find the majority of it on Facebook and Instagram. Like us on all three, just to make sure you don't miss anything. Thanks again, and what's that?
just don't miss anything, please.
Don't miss anything.
We got podcasts too. Just find us.
We're here.
Podcast.
We're waiting for you.
They're dropping links on everything. So
We're just dropping links.
Yeah, links abound. Okay, thanks again, and we'll catch you next time on Improv FAQ at length. Bye.